if you hit a slice or if you have an uncontrollable miss to the right, you can call it a block, you can call it a baby push, you can call it a slice, you can call it whatever you want. Your club face is open. And today what I want to talk about is how we can actually diagnose when our club face is open, at what point in the golf swing, and how do we fix it. Because right before we get into it, the first thing I'm going to say, and the number one reason why I'm doing this video, is so many players, they might have an idea that their club face is open, but I constantly see them trying to fix it at impact, whether they're trying to flip the wrist at the last second or whether they're trying to do something at impact. But if we have a technical flaw, or if our club face is open at impact, there's other spots in the golf swing where we have to check. So I'm going to break down, there's 4 positions where we need to know if our club face is open or not. We're going to dive into all 4 of them. I'm going to show you how to check them and what that could mean for your ball flight, in hopes that today is the day that you stop missing it to the right or to the left if you're a lefty. So let's get into it. So when we dive in, there's, as I said previously, there's 4 spots. The first spot is setup. And something that I need to be super picky about is where are we actually aiming that club face. There's a lot of players that feel that they make good golf swings and they miss to the right, that little push, that block. But the biggest mistake is that their club face is not even aiming where they want it to go. So it's normal for a lot of players to be aware of where their toes are lined up, which is what I have with the yellow alignment rod here. But what I have with the white alignment rod here is I have it pointed out towards the distance, like towards my target where I actually want this golf ball to start. And one thing I want you to make sure that you're doing is when you get set up to this golf shot, let's make sure that we get set up with our club face actually being square to where we want the golf ball to start. Because rule number 1, club face is king. And where that club face is pointing at setup and throughout the golf swing has a massive effect on where that golf ball goes. So if you're the player that comes in and you set your feet first and you make sure that you're really comfortable, and then you put your club face down last, I want you to stop that. Because if we're not looking after the club face, we're not really taking care of the thing that affects where the golf ball is going to go. So, number 1, when we come into these golf shots, let's make sure that our club face is actually pointing where we want to go. And something that I can leave you with on point number 1, I would actually rather you have kind of crummy body alignment, but really good club face alignment, instead of perfect body alignment and crummy club face alignment, because let's remember, club face is king. So number 1 checkpoint is where your club face pointing at setup. Number 2, if you're a slicer, if you're someone that comes over the top, or if you're someone who blocks it, a mistake that people make is we wait way too far into the golf swing to actually look for where the problem is. One of the checkpoints, which would be checkpoint number 2, is when we take the club back at the very start of the backswing. We'll call this P2 if you work off of the P system, but we'll call it club parallel to the ground, or quarter way back. And what I want you to check in P2 is where's your club face pointing. For a lot of golfers, it's very common that very early in the backswing, by the time they get to this position, we start to see a club face that is rolled and a club face that starts to open, right? For reference, if the grooves are pointing down towards the ground, the club face is closed in the takeaway. If the grooves are pointing up towards the sky, that club face is open. So we come in here, we set up, and we make our takeaway. And when I see this fault, the club face is already open. And now what happens is it becomes a compensation game. So where should the club face be? A lot of people will say that they want the club to be up and down, right? Like they want that bottom groove to be pointing up and down. And that might work for some, but the reference that matters for every golfer is, when I look at if the club face is neutral or not, it's relative to our spine angle. And the reason why that matters from golfer to golfer is some golfers set up really bent over, some golfers set up very tall. But one thing we're looking for in that P2 position, that quarterback position, is let's make sure that our club face is neutral. So this would be open, this would be closed, this would be neutral. So checkpoint number 1 at setup. Checkpoint number 2, don't be this golfer. Don't be the golfer that takes it inside of a super open club face. Let's make sure that when we take it back, that club isn't more in line with our body and that club face is matching our spine angle. So number 3, Ryan, I've got it. I've got my face set up at impact. When I take it away, I'm in a really good spot, but then I still end up with an open club face. The third position we can look at is the top of the backswing. And this one here can maybe get a little confusing but I'll go through it here and make sure I give you the breakdown. Our third position is where that club is at the top of the backswing. That's our third checkpoint. So my face is square, it's set up. My face is neutral to my spine in the takeaway. And then now when I get to the top of the backswing, something that I want to look for is my club face closed or open or neutral? In part 2, or in checkpoint 2, I said if the grooves are pointing down to the ground, that means that the club face is closed. Well, as we continue to rotate, if they're pointing more towards the sky now, that club face is still closed. Or one way that we can think about it is that if the club head is on this side, so more towards our body or towards where my head is, that club face is closed. And if it's pointed in this direction, it's more open. So, top of backswing, this would be closed, this would be open. Now, this one is important for a lot of players because this is when we start to talk about our wrists. And when players say that they have they want to feel a bowed wrist at the top, right? Or the fault that they have when they hit to the right is that they feel this cupped wrist at the top. That is an important one. But the thing that I'll highlight for so many players is if you roll that club inside, it's very likely that you're going to have the wrist bowed at the top, or at the top. If you take that club back more on plane, it gives you a chance to get a little bit more hinge and start to get a flatter left wrist. Do I need every golfer to have a bowed left wrist? Absolutely not. Not all drawers hit it like that. But the one thing we want to avoid most of the time is we want to avoid getting that club face open. So checkpoint number 3. The top of the backswing, is that where your breakdown is? Right, is this where you start to get that club face open? Because if that is, but we're square at setup and we're square in the takeaway, then we know it's the way that we're moving our arms and our body, and we can get super specific when we work with a coach or when we work on our own golf swing to say, I have to improve my position at the top, but I know I didn't mess it up in the takeaway. So where we are so far, we're going to check it set up. We're going to check in the takeaway neutral to my spine, and then we're going to check at the top of the backswing. If we're in those 3 spots and we're in pretty good shape, the odds of hitting a good golf shot are pretty good, but it doesn't mean all the work is done yet. Now, number 4, which is in the downswing, this is where I see most of the golfers focus their energy. Number 3 and number 4 tend to get the most attention. But I'm telling you right now that if you're a golfer that struggles with hitting shots to the right or a slice, you have to make sure that number 1 and number 2 are good. And I know a lot of you are going to tell me, Ryan, this is so easy, I can get to this position. Watch yourself on camera, and you'll be surprised how many players at full speed with a golf ball start to really take that club back super inside and roll the club face open. So position number 4 is as we make our downswing, we come back down to that club parallel position, and now we're looking at, again, similar to what we had in the backswing, is that club face closed or is it open? And for many of you that will hit a slice or miss to the right, by the time you're coming down, usually the golf club is on that side, we've cut across, and that club face is open. Now some of you might stop and say, okay, Ryan, but I've come over the top. Yes. Oftentimes the reason we come over the top is because we've opened the club face, and that's how we're trying to square it up. Because if we were to go in to out, if I was to have a draw path with an open club face, I would hit it so far to the right that that slice actually curves less. So let's get set up here. Let's make sure, number 1, our club face is aiming at our target, our start line. Number 2, that takeaway is on plane, that club face is close to being neutral with our spine. Number 3, as we get to the top of the backswing, again, the visual, this is closed, this is open, this is something neutral. One thing we can look at is, does the club face match our lead wrist? And then as we come down, and we come down to that quarter or 3/4 down, downswing. Again, is that club face on plane and is that club face more closed or open? If you struggle, I want you to find out which one of those 4 is the breakdown. And I want you to let me know. Because when players spend time on the driving range, I see them trying to work on this position. I see this move so often, right? But that player doesn't even get the club taken away in the right spot. So to summarize, there's 4 checkpoints that we can check to see where our club face is pointing, if it's open or closed. Setup, takeaway, backswing, and during the downswing. Do some research on your own golf swing, or if your coach has sent you videos, go back and look, where is your club face starting to open? And if it's open at impact, it's definitely open somewhere else along the way. Find that and make sure that ends up being the root cause. And my little secret coach tip for the day is the most common spot where the problem starts is position number 2. That takeaway is when we really start to get to see people already start to lose control of the club face. And then once we've taken it inside and it's open, that might lead us to get a little bit flat, and then that can lead us to come over the top. If you're slicing it to the right, there's a problem at impact, but we've got to go back earlier in the golf swing to find out exactly where that problem is. And I want you to dive into those 4 checkpoints and let me know in the comments down below which one is the fault for you. And once we know how early it starts, we know how early to start to fix it, to do away with those blocks and slices, and let's start hitting better golf shots. Thanks for watching, folks, and have a great day.